many of you have ever felt insecure about your body or felt societal pressure to fit the standard of beauty. Because of this pressure, many people opt for weight loss methods, one of these being the recently emerging skinny tea detox, potentially seeing it as a skinny tea for a skinny me. Often endorsed by high-profile celebrities, consumers are quick to buy into these health trends, but at what cost? An interest in this topic led me to evaluate the level of perceived medical credibility towards celebrities. To put the issue into context, I found in my initial research that marketing companies are aware that teenagers represent one of the easiest influence groups of consumers and are extremely sensitive to celebrity endorsements, and they use this to their advantage, as 40% of the products targeting young people feature at least one celebrity. However, this recent emergence of employing celebrities to endorse health products has contributed to the growth in the popularity of many evidence-free health trends, possibly due to the factor that celebrities frequently do not possess a broadened knowledge of the product they are endorsing, and that consumers really question the legitimacy of these endorsements. In addition, unregulated health product endorsements can be dangerous, since many celebrities will willingly put their faces on products they know little about in exchange for a large paycheck, which can mislead consumers into believing the celebrity genuinely supports and or uses a product when in reality, the celebrity easily may have never even heard of the product before. After conducting my initial research, what does my original research add to the existing body of knowledge? In essence, I found that there were a few studies surveying high school students. I found a source by the Journal of Developing Areas that measured the same variables as I did, but had only one respondent in the age group below 20. Additionally, I found that there were no scholarly studies on the Kardashians' endorsement of specifically the Fit Tea product. I found a study by Megan Smith-Mady on the Kardashians' endorsement of the Diclajus product and a source by Tony Steer on the endorsement of the Atkins diet, but not on Fit Tea. And lastly, I found that there were a lack of studies evaluating the economic value of health product endorsements. I found a source by Marketing Science measuring the economic value of Tiger Woods' endorsement of Nike golf balls, and the source itself elaborated on how the implication of the endorsement effect extends to many other industries. So I decided to take this a step further and extend it towards the health industry. All of this led me to my research question, which asks, does the Kardashians' endorsement of the Fit Tea Detox, a skinny tea diet inducing weight loss, inadvertently cause high school students in a small, private North Dallas high school to regard celebrity dietary suggestions as medically credible? Before continuing, I would like to define medically credible. I personally define medically credible as being on the same level of reliability as a clinical health suggestion would be. A celebrity with a high medical credibility would be more useful in an endorsement because consumers both value and trust their opinion. Now, in my research, I make a few assumptions. Firstly, I assume that the respondents of my survey are being honest. I also assume that celebrities are motivated, if not fully, then at least partially, by financial profit in their endorsements. And lastly, I assume that the endorser I am discussing, Kourtney Kardashian, lacks medical credibility. I am also testing a few hypotheses. Firstly, I hypothesize that females will be more likely to perceive celebrities as medically credible. I also hypothesize that a higher inclination to try a weight loss product will result in a higher likelihood to purchase the Fit Tea product. And lastly, I hypothesize that the higher the perceived medical credibility, the higher the likelihood to purchase the Fit Tea will be. After establishing my research question, assumptions, and hypotheses, I asked myself, what was the goal of my research? And I finalized that this was to explain the correlation between celebrity endorsements of health products and perceived medical credibility towards these celebrity dietary suggestions, which appear to be interdependent on one another. For my method, I employed a quantitative analysis through an experimental approach. So the first step was to decide who am I surveying. For participants, I surveyed 255 students from a small private high school in the North Dallas area. Because many of these respondents were under 18, I had to get consent from them and their parents, which was done through a consent form which conveyed the confidentiality of their responses and the summarized purpose of the survey. Before I could survey the students, however, I needed to get administrative approval, which was received via signature of the principal. And the last step was survey distribution. I personally distributed consent forms to the students in their block period. Students who turned in this consent form were emailed the link to the survey via their school email. And at the end of the 2-week time period, no more responses were collected. Now, to elaborate a little bit more on my survey. My survey consisted of 8 questions, was online, and was restricted to one submission only. To see if the respondent were to find this endorsement, as you see here, medically credible because of Kourtney Kardashian specifically, I had to account for contributing factors. So I measured the respondent's gender, their likelihood of trying a safe weight loss product, whether or not they had a predisposed knowledge of the Fit Tea product or of Kourtney Kardashian, and if they did know of Kourtney Kardashian, if they saw her positively or negatively, and their level of trust on her. Now, following the end of the data collection period, I received 53 responses from a sample population of 255 students, which yielded me a response rate of about 21%. 70% of the 53 were female, while the remaining 30% were male. However, this male-to-female response ratio was not representative of the male-to-female student ratio at the school, with 32.5% of females responding and 11.3% of males responding. For data analysis, as you can see here, I plugged in the responses into Google Sheets with the respondent on the y-axis and the question on the x-axis, then creating the charts using Google Explorer, which was in Google Sheets. Now, diving into my research analysis. First, I want to focus on the analysis of gender and a likelihood of trying a weight loss product. Now, when the survey asked the likelihood of buying the Fit Tea product after viewing the endorsement, I found a low overall likelihood of trying the Fit Tea product, which was surprising to me. Comparing male and female responses by combining questions 1 and 9 on the survey, I found that the main difference was that males were more likely to state that they would not at all try the Fit Tea product, whereas females, on the other hand, preferred the not likely answer choice, suggesting that females were a bit more open to the idea of trying the Fit Tea product, possibly due to a higher female interest towards weight loss products in general as compared to males. When I decided to compare each gender's level of trust in Kourtney Kardashian with the graph discussed prior, I found that females were more likely to trust Kourtney Kardashian's opinion, which interestingly did not seem to appear so when the respondent was asked if they were willing to try a product that Kourtney Kardashian claimed to trust and use. Now, this both supported and did not support my hypothesis that females would perceive Kourtney Kardashian with a higher medical credibility, as it showed that while respondents, especially female respondents, might find Kourtney Kardashian credible, this does not directly translate to medical credibility. Next, I decided to see how responses on the willingness to try a Fit Tea product compared to the respondents' willingness to try any weight loss product. I found a higher likelihood to try a weight loss product, which was intriguing because this did not correspond with the likelihood to try the Fit Tea product. And this disproved my initial hypothesis that a higher inclination to try a weight loss product would result in a higher inclination to buy the Fit Tea product. Rather, the opposite occurred, as respondents were more willing to try a weight loss product than to try Fit Tea. But since Fit Tea is a weight loss product, I figured the problem in the endorsement had to be the Fit Tea itself or Kourtney Kardashian that was leading respondents to be less likely to purchase the specific weight loss product after viewing the endorsement. I figured that if Kourtney Kardashian was the reason why, then that would display that the respondents perceived her as having a low medical credibility. With this in mind, I set to find out which is the cause. In order to answer the question, I decided to focus on the respondents' predisposed view of Kourtney Kardashian, including their level of trust on her, since 94% of respondents claimed to know of her. When I compared the level of trust the respondent held for Kourtney Kardashian according to their predisposed view of her, which is displayed on the key as you can see here, utilizing survey questions 6 and 7, I found that a little more than half of the respondents viewed Kourtney Kardashian neutrally, with a quarter viewing her negatively and a little less than a quarter viewing her positively. As you can see in the graph, this view tended to coincide with the level of trust in Kourtney Kardashian, and this makes logical sense. However, since the majority viewed her neutrally, the majority of respondents also appeared to not have a high level of trust in Kourtney Kardashian, but more a moderate level. After finding that most respondents held a more moderate rather than high level of trust in Kourtney Kardashian, I compared those results with the respondents' likelihood of trying the Fit Tea product. Now, to decode the graph, those with no level of trust in Kourtney Kardashian, as shown through the blue box, had almost no chance of buying the product. Those with a low level of trust, displayed through the red box, had a small but larger chance of buying the Fit Tea product. However, when the respondent had a high level of trust for Kourtney Kardashian, indicated through the green box, they were still either not likely or only maybe likely to try the product. And this disproved my hypothesis that a higher perceived medical credibility would equal a higher likelihood to buy the product, because the likelihood above being maybe likely was minimal. And this supports the finding that the respondents trusted Kourtney Kardashian, but not as a figure credible enough to be making health suggestions. After analyzing Kourtney Kardashian's effect on the likelihood of trying the Fit Tea product, I wanted to see how a prior knowledge of the Fit Tea product itself affected the perceived medical credibility of the endorsement. Combining questions 3 and 9, I analyzed the likelihood of purchasing the Fit Tea product based on whether or not the respondent already knew of the product. Finding that around half had prior knowledge of the Fit Tea product and half didn't, those who did know of the product had a bit higher likelihood of purchasing the product, but it was still relatively low. However, when I looked at the source of predisposed knowledge of the Fit Tea product, I found that 92.3% of respondents who knew of the Fit Tea prior to viewing the endorsement knew of it through the media, which was interesting because Kourtney Kardashian's endorsement occurs on the media, raising the possibility that some respondents might have already seen the specific endorsement or another endorsement of the same product, suggesting that rather than a pre-existing knowledge of the Fit Tea product, Kourtney Kardashian's presence in the endorsement seemed to affect the respondent's likelihood to purchasing the product more, because there was a chance that even the contributing factor of knowledge of the Fit Tea product before could have been affected by an endorser. To summarize my data analysis, I found a low overall likelihood of buying the Fit Tea product, which was significant because it shows that respondents are not easily swayed by celebrity suggestions, or at least Kourtney Kardashian's, while there was a higher likelihood for female respondents. In terms of trust versus perceived medical credibility, I found that a high level of trust in the endorser didn't necessarily mean a high perceived medical credibility, indicating that respondents were able to discern that this was a medical suggestion being made by a celebrity, so they did not give the suggestion much weight. And lastly, I found that a predisposed knowledge of the product did not equal a higher level of trust in the product. While the likelihood was higher with a prior knowledge, it was still relatively low, and this could be due to the high chance of the source of media of the product being through Kourtney Kardashian or another celebrity, which was significant because it answered my research question, that no, the teenagers I surveyed did not inadvertently regard Kourtney Kardashian's dietary suggestion as medically credible. However, a few limitations arose in my research, and I would like to address that before continuing. Firstly, my research yielded a very low response rate, possibly due to the required parental consent that respondents had to fill out, and this was a limitation as it lowered the desired accuracy of my results. Additionally, I only surveyed one school due to the time constraint, which limited me to a very small survey sample, and this limited the extent of application of my results because they were so small in scope. And lastly, the lack of more questions that represented whether or not the respondent found the endorsement medically credible gave me less support in my data analysis, so it appeared as a limitation because the connections I made were a bit more of a stretch than I would have desired them to be. Still, my current research leaves much room for future additional studies. For future research, I would propose a qualitative study that measures why respondents did or did not find Kourtney Kardashian medically credible. I would also propose future research to use a larger sample group just for more accuracy. I also think it would be really significant to study the perceived medical credibility that respondents hold for other celebrities, because while these students might not find Kourtney Kardashian medically credible, they might find another celebrity medically credible. And it is crucial to be aware of celebrities that hold a high medical credibility and ensure that their endorsements are accurate, as the danger of inaccurate product representation includes side effects, according to the American Journal of Law and Medicine. Not only that, but teenagers deserve to and need to see endorsements portrayed with honesty in the media, and if not, at least be cautious when evaluating the worth of products in celebrity endorsements. Thank you. And here are my citations.
Okay. All right, this is all as one question. What was one obstacle or challenge you encountered while implementing your research method, and how did you address it?
So one issue I had while implementing my research method, I kind of hinted towards it in my presentation, was a very low response rate. Initially, I decided I was going to give consent forms to students in their block period, and they could turn in the consent form to me within a week, and they would take the survey within the next week. But this only gave me about 5 responses. So then I decided, okay, let me try to just personally distribute this consent form to students around me and in my classes, but to still let them know that the survey is voluntary. And this yielded me with about 20 responses, but it was still less than the desired response rate I wanted. I wanted at least 50 responses. So then I decided to implement a food incentive. So I told respondents or potential respondents that if they could turn in the consent form to me and take the survey during a certain time period, they could receive a cookie. And this most definitely worked because it ended up giving me 53 responses. And Did I miss any other questions?
No, that was it.
Okay. Yeah.
Which of the various perspectives you explored was the most difficult for you to incorporate into your research inquiry, and why?
So I would say the psychological perspective of my research was kind of hard to implement into my research. There was a source from the International Journal of Health and Allied Sciences that basically mentioned the psychological perspective of health endorsements, basically including after viewing an endorsement, does the respondent feel a low self-esteem? Do they feel badly or positively about their body image? And I was really interested in that, and I wanted to evaluate that, including evaluating how much perceived medical credibility respondents did have towards the endorser I was discussing. But when I looked at it, trying to figure out whether or not respondents held a level of perceived medical credibility towards the endorser required a quantitative analysis, whereas trying to figure out the psychological effect of the endorsement was just another section, and it was kind of, it employed a qualitative analysis, which I wanted to kind of not have a mixed method, but have only one. In addition, so basically, because of that, I decided to eliminate the psychological perspective and include it as possibly a future implication or future research that my study could have, because I found that it was kind of misaligned to be asking the two in the same question. Not only would it be too broad, but it was misaligned that if I was asking the psychological perspective of the endorsement and I was talking about Kourtney Kardashian, it would be unclear whether or not the respondent found the endorsement whether the psychological effect was due to the product itself or whether it was due to Kourtney Kardashian.
All right, question 3 for you. In what specific part of your research process was your expert advisor most helpful, and how is he or she most helpful? And what did you learn from your expert advisor about your field of research?
So my expert advisor was very helpful for me in terms of survey structure. So when I showed my initial survey to my expert advisor, it was a 25-question survey filled with Likert scale questions and a series of yes or no questions. And my expert advisor asked me if all these questions were necessary, and if they weren't, which ones could I potentially eliminate because this could possibly affect my response rate. He asked me basically, were respondents really going to be willing to answer a 25-question survey? And so I took this into account, and I decided to eliminate questions that I was kind of just asking mainly just to find a good amount of background information on the respondent. So I decided to only keep questions that pertained to indirectly finding out whether or not the respondent found Kourtney Kardashian medically credible, or asking contributing factors that could affect their likelihood of perceived medical credibility towards her. And this was helpful because, also in addition, my expert advisor kind of suggested the idea of having the survey online, on SurveyMonkey specifically, because it did the basic analysis of just calculating the percentages of each response first, so that would have saved me more time. And also, my expert advisor advised me to only keep one submission allowed per participant, so that only the respondent could only answer at one time to prevent one respondent answering it multiple times. And so this taught me that in terms of when you're gathering data from especially a pool of people, like when you're surveying people, it is really important to evaluate how the respondent is going to respond, basically how the participant is going to respond to your survey, and what's going to really help what's really going to help a high response rate, because that's really important when it comes to calculating results.